a Golden Globe winning performance from Jodie Foster in The Mauritanian, the movie based off of the book uh, Guantanamo Diary by Mohamedou Ould Salahi. And it really tells his story, being um, imprisoned in Guantanamo Bay by the United States government and tortured for, what was it, like 17 years, 15
14
years?
years,
Insane.
spanning two presidencies.
And uh, really heartbreaking tale. And then, obviously you have Jodie Foster and Shailene Woodley playing these lawyers from, I think they're the ACLU, right? I don't know if
No, I
that's
don't think
ever,
so. I think they're just
no,
from a firm, private
just
firm,
from a
right?
firm.
Yeah.
So it just playing these lawyers to, pro bono are helping this guy out. And, I found this movie to be, um, I think it had a little bit of the Aaron Sorkin Trial of the Chicago 7 touch in terms of Benedict Cumberbatch's character. And maybe we'll
Mm.
talk about that a little bit more. But I think overall, I found this to be a pretty interesting watch, and just really, it gets the point across in terms of how disgusting the treatment of these people
Yeah.
was. And I definitely left just being like, man, sometimes fuck the U.S. government.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is watching the Mauritanian, which I did like. You can't help but be struck by ways this movie could have been better, and I think
Mm,
actually could have been exceptional. Reminds me a lot of The Report from 2019, the docudrama starring Adam Driver about similar subject matter, but coming at it
yeah.
from a different way. And in this case, the Mauritanian, the problem is that the most interesting part of the story, the most important part of the story, of course, is Mohamedou, played by Tahar Rahim, who was nominated for a Golden Globe. Um, we get away from Salahi far too much in the
Mhm.
Mauritanian. That's bad because he should be the central figure in his own story.
Of
You mentioned
course.
Benedict Cumberbatch playing, I believe it's a colonel in the military who's
Colonel Stuart
charged with,
Couch.
yeah, prosecuting Salahi at the
Hmm.
you know behest of Rumsfeld and Department of Defense and everything. And shockingly, this man of faith, who, despite having personal attachments to 9/11, he finds a conscience once he realized what's happened to Salahi and also the lack of evidence against the man. But we didn't need any of that. We really didn't need that angle at all.
No.
We could have had more time with Salahi himself. The movie's better
Yeah.
for it, and
Yeah.
that's just unfortunate.
Yeah. I thought some of the most um, interesting and affecting moments were Salahi by himself in the like 8 by 8 foot cage that they allowed him to have outdoor time in, and
Right,
talking with the what was the guy
Marseille.
from Marseille, yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's great.
just such a touching way to kind of like show how his faith really propelled him through, but then also how the Marseille prisoner wasn't able to continue on, decided not to continue on based on the treatment he was
Hmm.
dealing with, and how that kind of led to this downward spiral. I thought probably the most affecting part of the movie was when they get his letter, right, about like all the treatment, and they just kind of go through and show you like the all the ways that they tortured the
Yeah.
prisoners there. And I really felt like I feel like that montage is gonna like stick in my brain, like wearing the mask, like sexually embarrassing the
Yep.
prisoners,
Hmm.
forcing them to do things and
Mock
say things.
execution on the water, all
Yeah,
that stuff. Yeah.
threatening to bring his
Cold
mother into the
temperatures.
prison, and just
Mm.
terribly, terribly disturbing. Which is what happened. Like, yeah, at
Yeah.
least it's really disgusting.
And the thing is, it's like we almost like we build to that, right? Like
Right.
you could get all that. It's kind of like thrown at the end. This like final like 30 minutes, and
Mhm.
leading to that point, the movie like does this thing where if you don't know the real life story, you might have suspicions of Salahi and whether he's actually done it. Right? He's picked up by the U.S. government or picked up by the Mauritanian government, given to the U.S. A few months after 9/11, I believe. because his cousin was actually directly involved with Al Qaeda, and so he had like previous relations with Al Qaeda. And he traveled around, and it's kind of like a guilty by association thing. They called him Forrest Gump when it comes to all that.
Mhm.
And the guy who played Cumberbatch played in real life literally spoke on real life. He said that this was the case of a lot of smoke with no fire, where there actually was no evidence at all. This man had done anything or had any aspirations to do anything wrong. He just was around, suspiciously, I guess, whatever, right? Yet that obviously doesn't mean you can be jailed for 14 years without even being charged with a crime. That should go without saying. I think my issue too would be along those lines, like when he's getting interrogated, right? They're like, "Oh, well, you fought with Al Qaeda, right? You were there in like the late '80s, early '90s in Afghanistan," and then Slahi's like, "Yeah, I was fighting with the Mujahideen. So were you guys, same side, right?" Because this movie's like kind of taking the docudrama angle, I think they should have hammered that home a little bit more. Because I think to
Mhm.
the average viewer, they don't really know what that means.
Right.
I think they should have a good job of like saying like, "Hey, I could have been using AK-47s that you guys gave us for all you know, right? Like I
Mhm.
was fighting with you guys against the Taliban." Like
Yeah.
there was some real life history I wish they could have like hammered home a little bit, but because they want to like keep it vague, they intentionally held that back. I think they want to like keep his his guilt a mystery. And like you had that thing with Shailene Woodley where she's like, "He did it, he confessed," and she gets all hysterical about it, right? And again, there's choices that I think prevent the movie from reaching its potential because the story was there.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think there's things that could have been better, but I still felt like it was pretty strong film in my opinion. And I think it's hard to like for me to envision how they would have hammered home some of those points. I guess it would have had to have been like another perspective, because in that situation where you are a prisoner who is brought to Cuba and tortured, and you're just trying to like survive at that point, to then be like, no, you guys were supplying arms to the,
Mhm.
these people for this conflict. It's a tough stance to ask that guy to take in that moment, I'd feel like. But yeah, maybe on the like American side, like the Stuart Couch character played by Cumberbatch could have definitely driven that home in his conversations with Zachary Levy and things like that, because they were kind of going in that direction in terms of like how they were just trying to like pin things on people without any evidence with Levy. So
Right, right.
um, yeah, I definitely I thought could have been better, but I still felt like was pretty effective. You mentioned Shailene Woodley. I, I don't know if I just like don't like her as an actress. I just didn't find her to be that strong, and it reminded me just the HBO series,
Big Little Lies.
yeah, Big Little Lies, and how I always just kind of found her performance in that to be not really that be catching either. I don't know.
She definitely hasn't had the best roles in quite a while. Like at least Big Little Lies was high profile, and she
Right.
was acting along big time actors. But like after Divergent flames out, like what Descendants is like the one like really good movie she's been in, and like was it Spectacular Now? Was it like she's been in a few things, but we're kind of far away from that at this point. It's kind of weird, right? Like
Hmm.
you would have thought she would have been a bigger deal. And like again, this she's a thankless like supporting lawyer. Like
Lackey, yeah.
she's not even the Jodie Foster character,
No,
right?
and
Like this is a completely thankless role that like if you omit it from the film, nothing changes.
yeah, and that's the thing is you have Jodie Foster and Tahar, Rahim, and even Cumberbatch, who I thought were really strong. I mean, even Zachary Levy, I was like, okay, or is it Levi?
Yeah.
I think I keep
Yeah,
saying Levy.
reminded me of the John Hamm character in the report. It's like this is a
Yeah,
fucked up guy
right.
involved in the U.S. government.
But I was kind of like, like this is a good like look for him and putting a little range on,
Yeah,
for him. She just came across as a big dud for me. So I don't know, a little disappointing on that end, but I still think it's a it's an interesting watch, and I think you can definitely do worse in terms of some of the movies out right now.
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's directed by Kevin McDonald. It's definitely his definitely his most high profile film since Last King of Scotland, back in '06, where Forrest Whitaker won Best Actor. Like, it's been a long time since he's made, like, I think, a zeitgeisty film, and Mauritanian as a late breaking awards play. Um, you can do worse, no question.